Test, test, test. Who's the delivery manager here?
I'm one of them. He's four.
Okay. Could we interrupt his lecture and make him put on the mic because that is not being streamed?
Got it. Yeah, that's fine. Do you want me to do it or do you want to do it?
Okay, let's do both.
Okay, that's fine. Let's do it.
Okay. So he needs to repeat the questions of the audience because nobody can hear it as well.
Into the company. And then there is one of the main uses, precision agriculture. Of course, no problems. Wow, there's a mic. Sorry. I put it here.
Yeah, wherever. There's a clip.
Okay.
And they confirm it's no projecting.
Yeah, it's not projecting. Okay. I still have to keep on shouting. Precision farming, which is a very important use. You can use sensors. You can use not only, of course, images, but you can use many sensors, many kind of different sensors, in order to have really good outcome in precision farming. And then, of course, fantasy your limit. You can use for try and find poachers as they do in Africa, or you can use drones for checking damages in planes, as they do it as EasyJet is doing. And then you can do many things. Last January, so last month, Qualcomm started a presentation with autonomous drones which interact with the environment, and they are able to move in any environment, even in a closed environment without GPS, of course, using machine learning and artificial intelligence. So you can have different, fantasy is your limit. Technically, you can do almost everything. And drones are very useful for dirty, dull, and dangerous operations where no human can be involved, and they can do it without any problem. But there are some drone risks. I won't go very long into them. But, of course, peeping drones, this is just one example. Drones are a fantastic tool for invading people's privacy. We have to keep in mind, and we'll think about it later. And then there is another risk. I won't show you the video, but you can search it online. This is a fantastic video of a couple who decided to have his best moments filmed on drones, and the drone just crashes into the bride, into the groom. So you can have a look at it, but it's just a risk. But what about drones and FOSS? Why should we have to talk about it? We should have to talk about it because free and open source software is really it is the core of drones. We have the drone code, the open source UFO platform, which is the drone code project, is an open source and collaborative project, which has been founded in 2014, and it has many members. Now it has one less member we will talk about in a while, but it is still a very important and backed by the Linux Foundation. And the autopilot, the PX4 Pro, it's an independent open hardware and open software. An open source software is licensed on a BSD license, but one library, as far as I remember. But there are already some problems. With every community has its thorns, and also the drone code community has its problem. And a couple of months ago, there has been a problem, and ArduPilot, I guess many of you know about ArduPilot, decided to leave drone code on. Decided to leave drone code because of a change of policy, or so they say, with regard to licensing. ArduPilot is a GPL v3 project and wanted to stay like that, while on the other hand, it seems that a general, or so it is to be understood by what the press statements say, that the other project wanted to focus on a more different license or a more permissive. Change your microphone. Yes.
If you need for the audience, you can just turn it on afterwards.
Okay. Wait. Okay, this is for the recording.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'll just check on the camera if there's.
Does it work?
Okay.
Yes. So,
Sorry?
so we
Yeah.
now have autopilot that's going on its own and wanted to keep the
have to
the
press for
GPL
3 seconds here.
V3 license, while the rest of drone code allegedly has decided to keep different licenses, more permissive license. And of course, there are different opinions, and I'm not part of any of those communities, so just go and take a look for yourself. I have just one comment. If you read the bylaws of drone code, even the first aim, it's clear that it is aimed at producing a platform that's consumer and commercial open source platform. So more or less it was keeping different drone projects based on GNU Linux. This is just one of them, but there are lots of free open source platforms which allow you to use and build and fly a drone. But that's the main point. What about data protection? We have another talk about data protection and the general data protection regulation. So I will just put the main problem. I will leave to the other speaker to deal on.
Sorry, can you use this one too, because this one's for the. I'm sorry.
Third mic.
Yeah, it's for the moment it's gonna be like that. Sorry.
Okay. Do we have any more mics? Come on. Come on. I want to be recorded. Talking about data protection, I want to be recorded just in full. Okay. What about data protection? If you want to have a good idea about data protection in drones, start with opinion 125 of the Article 29 Working Party. This was before the data protection regulation, but it is still a very interesting document. It is, strangely enough, a short one that makes you understand the whole problem. But let's deal with the EU regulation. Just a couple of remarks. The EU regulation will enter has already been published, but it will enter into force next year in May. So just if you are doing a business plan on drones, you have to take into consideration, of course. And what are the main points? One point is very important when it comes to drones. It's transparency. You have to make the persons aware that you're using a drone nearby. You have to make aware of that, and you have to make people aware also in a machine-readable way. So you have to think how to implement it, and then you have to use icons. This is one of the icons I found to let people know that you're maybe filming with a drone around. Maybe of course, this won't be the icon that will be implemented for telling people that a drone is flying nearby. But let's become a little more serious and consider some key concepts of the EU regulation, which are very important for developing every kind of aspect with regard to drones. Data protection by design and data protection by default. You have to implement the data protection policies from start. When you start writing code for drones, you have to think about it. You have to think about data protection by design. You have to embed, I will put it in the next slides, you have to embed the data protection principle in the code, because it cannot be an afterthought. You cannot like write codes, free and open source code for the use of drones, even if it's an autopilot, without having privacy in mind. You cannot patch it later. You have to think it when you start developing, because you have to abide to data protection by design and data protection by default. By default, it means that the system has to minimize the data they gather. It may seem strange, because drones do normally the opposite. They are a fantastic platform for gathering data, which is all perfectly fine unless if there are no personal data. But if there are personal data, you have to comply with the principle. It has been said before, we love compliance, we have to be compliant with privacy. And then, of course, it is the privacy impact assessment. Of course, it may be the data control. Then you run. There is a certification system embedded into the regulation, which certifies many parts, and also the data protection by to think about. Which one do you want?
It's on the right, the one on the right. Yeah.
You're welcome. Good. Okay. Sorry, I felt better with too much. Please. Anyway,
So like when I put external,
as I told before,
it's the one here.
when we think about coding with regard to
Get Mario?
with regard to streaming or with regard to sensors which may gather personal data. For the whole of any kind of software which may interact in the drone environment, it's absolutely paramount, because, as I said, you cannot do it. Later. What about aviation safety regulations? Many countries do have their own regulations, but looking at the future, and once again the near future, 2019, 2020, we have the Prototype Commission regulation on unmanned aircraft operation. It will be all the same all over the European Union, or what's left of the European Union, we don't know. But anyways, it will be a binding rule all over the EU. So effectively creating a common market for drones. So it's very important. And it's kind of different, especially with regard to the rules which are already in place. In Italy, we've been among the first one to regulate drones. Maybe in the wrong way, but we were among the first one. I won't go into details with the rules, but I want just to state some points, because they may be of interest, of course, for people who will develop the software which allows to run those drones. One of the most important category is the open category 0, which is almost completely free. Small drones which are deemed to be of negligible risk. They have some limits. I won't go into all the limits, you can read it. But they don't need with pilot license, they don't need pilot registration. They have, of course, some limits. They have to be marked as toys. They have to be compliant with the regulation directive, 48/2009, and they have to bear the CE mark. But apart from that, they are substantially free. The open category 1 has a bigger injuries level, but still this injury level means they don't make any risk of severe personal injuries to people or with regard to collision with planes. And in this case, still there is no pilot license. It is kind of different as it is now. So you can fly many drones without pilot's license, provided the operators are registered. The two bigger categories have another requirement, which is very interesting, and of course it has to be implemented via software. They have geofencing and electronic identification. So if you have to implement geofencing, it's very simple, but of course it has to be effective. And so you have to think about it from the start. For the two main Open Category 2 and Open Category 3 of drones. So the new regulation will hopefully open up the markets, but there are several limits. There are no autonomous drones, or it doesn't seem there are autonomous drones. The limit of height and distance, VLOS means visual line of sight. Now you can fly your drones regardless of where you are, but the regulation will still have the limit of the visual line of sight. So there may be some problems. What about building your own drone? Subcategory 0, which is the first one, very small ones can be privately built, but they have to comply with the regulation. And in every other category, the operation can be performed with a UAS, so with a drone, let's put it simply, which is placed in the market that has not been modified in a way that breaches compliance with the product requirements. So this is, of course, as we said twice, we like compliance, but you have to bear in mind this, that, of course, it's not a problem. There's no problem of writing an open source, free and open source system, which is, for instance, an autopilot for drones. We have a keynote of using free and open source software on air traffic control, which has, of course, even a bigger degree of security issues. So I'm positive we can write good and so certifiable code also for drones. One key point, and I don't know if they're going to change, is that the regulation should apply to model aircraft as well, not only to commercial drones, but also to model aircraft. So even if we are developing something which is going to be applied for model aircraft, we have to take into consideration this future regulation, still the very next future. In conclusion, we really need to fully apply data protection rules and also security rules to drone. And that's the reason why with the University of Cagliari and some other universities we are thinking to apply to the COSME program, which is a program which has the aim to raise awareness for civil drones operators and privacy on data protection obligations. This is very important. If you want to try and participate to this tender with us, just drop me a note. And I think that it is very important to raise awareness, and we can also raise awareness on how much free and open source software can contribute in the transparency of the process of using drones, and also in raising the security of using drones. So this could be a good opportunity, and the deadline, I think, is the first days of April, so we have still time to organize. If we don't abide, then okay, we can have some not nice outcome. I don't know if you have seen this video of a chimp who wants to defend his privacy against a drone, but even humans have to defend themselves. Or, on the other hand, it may happen like that. a widespread ban in many areas because there is no compliance with privacy and security rules, and this is not, of course, the outcome we're searching for. So we have really to evaluate our freedom. We can implement, for sure, these rules with free and open source software, and we have to do it. So thank you very much for your patience. Thank you very much for hearing me with different microphones, and I'm open to questions. If I have time, I don't know.
There's about 5 minutes.
Okay, good. Questions? Yes.
What are the penalties if you don't follow the requirements that you mentioned from the EU?
Okay, there are in the EU regulations, it is just stated that the penalties have to be adequate, proportionate, and dissuasive. It will be to the member states to decide which are the penalties. I can tell you about Italy, but it's a widespread problem because normally when you fly a commercial drone, rules for airplanes apply. Penalties tend to be awfully hefty. For instance, under Italian law, if you fly a drone without insurance, or even without a pilot and operator holding the certificate, for not holding the certificate, you may risk a fine of 30,000 euros. For not having your drone insured, 100,000 euros, which is negligible if you are an aircraft carrier. If you're a commercial drone pilot, well, it's not negligible. So it will depend. Yes. Wow.
So one of your slides said that drones can be modified, but make sure that it has not changed the compliance, the regulation, or it was a slide, right? So the idea is that after each modification, it has to be recertified.
Well, if you go through the regulation, it says that the producer has to assess that also in case of software updates, it will still be compliant. Of course, changing in the way we think when we think about free software is way different, but it's a problem that arises in every kind of environment where you have to use certified products. As I said, there will be a talk on, if they can use it for air traffic control, I'm positive they can use it also for drones. Or of course, it's a problem of making people understand that, of course, you can have your freedom, and of course, if it's for instance released under GPL v3, you cannot stop it from modifying it, but you have to maybe by assigning the first code, you have to just make persons understand that you sell that product, and if you change it, you are allowed to change it, but you may lose that certification.
Thank you. Is there a legal agreement between EU countries and non-EU countries? For example, EU countries and Switzerland. Is there any kind of agreement?
No, but I talked about drones in Switzerland this September. Swiss rules are quite similar to the EU ones. They are not much difference. And this regulation has some similarities also with other regulations, like the FAA regulation in the States. But there is no international agreement.
That's all the time we have for questions. Thank you very much, Giovanni.
Okay, thank you.